Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, and Rob Lewis. As always, a thank you to Exterior Home Solutions. They can help you out here this summer for home repairs or just upgrade to your home, renovations, whatever the case may be. You can get a free estimate by calling them at 865-524-5888 or visiting them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. They've been local and trusted since 1999. Got a lot going on here today. Going to talk plenty in Tennessee recruiting because, of course, it is continuing to be a lot of positives here lately on the recruiting trail for the Volunteers. And we'll get into a key injury for Tennessee in the secondary and some notes and observations over the course of the first week of fall camp. We'll start with the big news that came out over the weekend. That's Faison Brandon, the number one quarterback for the class of 2026, according to On3, number 10 ranked prospect overall, committing to Tennessee, jump-starting the class of 2026. And Austin Price, Tennessee's been in a really, really good position here for quite some time, but it just kind of goes on to show you that Josh Heupel is recruiting quarterbacks out of the high school ranks as well, if not better than anybody right now.
Well, they're identifying, and Faison's one that Tennessee was in on before anybody else, and he fell in love with Tennessee. And by the time others kind of caught up, Tennessee had established themselves to a level that nobody could catch up. He took visits just to make sure, and no one ever measured up to what he felt at Tennessee. And the family, one of the, I would say, top 5 all-time moms and dads I've dealt with. I mean, they're just super people and just great to be around. But Faison has got a ton of upside. Remember, he is just 16 years old. Just 16. He'll play this fall and next fall and be, going through spring practice as a 17-year-old. So watch out. This kid's got growing left to do.
What about his skill set, Brent, is, unique and why he's so highly rated right now? What does he bring to the table? And why do you think he felt like it was now to jump in the boat when obviously there's a lot of time left in his recruitment?
Well, quarterbacks go early, and, that's kind of the thing. And then when you know. And I think this was a situation where they were always going to do something before, the start of his senior year and all those types of things. But they saw a bunch of schools this summer in the spring, checked everything out, and they kept coming back to Tennessee. And it was always about Tennessee. And so I think it was just a situation where they were totally comfortable with everything at Tennessee, and he wants to recruit and help jumpstart the class and get going that way. So I think that's why it's Tennessee. As for his skill set, if you're watching on YouTube, you see his highlights. I mean, one thing that jumps out to me, he's very accurate with the football. He was very accurate with the football the first time he camped at Tennessee. He was very accurate when he camped this past year at Tennessee and the night at Neyland Deal. He's obviously athletic, can throw off platform. He's got good height, can play in the pocket. There's a lot to like about his game. I think it fits well and will translate well into this offense. And as Austin mentioned, with his age, there's obviously a ton of upside there.
Rob, you look at what Josh Heupel's done the last couple of cycles. Of course, his first cycle, he was behind the 8 ball, obviously. He gets out, you miss on Ty Simpson. You look at Sam Horn a little bit. You get Taven Jackson, who was the top 200 player. He's at Indiana now. But then you get Nico, number 1 overall prospect in the country, 5-star. Get Jake Merklinger, who is a 4-star, prospect quarterback. George McIntyre for the class of 2025, 4-star, top 100 player. And then now Faison, Brandon's top, 10, 11 player in the country, going to be a 5-star according to the industry rankings. Josh Heupel is recruiting this position better than anybody. And yeah, you look at what Kirby's done since he's been head coach at Georgia. It's very impressive at what he's done with the quarterback position. But Josh Heupel deserves a lot of praise right now. He's connecting, he's evaluating, and him and Joey Halzle both are getting guys to campus and getting guys to join this program.
I mean, I think it's remarkable. I don't think you can say enough about it. I mean, Hubbard, you were here for the Peyton, Brandon Stewart embarrassment of riches. You were around all that, but I mean, there's not been anything like this 3-year run this century with, Nico, Merklinger, and now Faison, in 3 straight years. And then you look at what he did with, guys who weren't rated nearly that highly as, college players in terms of development and production with Joe and Hendon. And I mean, I'd have to believe that's what those kids are seeing. They look at Hendon Hooker was a 3-star recruit who didn't do a lot at Virginia Tech, and suddenly he's a household name. And I just Yeah, to me, from the outside looking in, it's pretty easy to see why this would be an appealing offense for quarterbacks and receivers, for that matter. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun.
Well, and I think the other thing too, and when you throw George into that mix with Faison and Merklinger and obviously Nico, to me the one thing that stands out about them, Austin, is they've been decisive at the quarterback position. They haven't gone back and forth on 1A, 1B, kind of who are we going to recruit here. I mean, they have made a decision, bam, and gone. And I think because of that, that's allowed them to focus all their eggs on that. And you hear these kids that have committed talk about what a priority they've been. They're not trying to recruit 6 quarterbacks to get one. They've made a decision. This is who they're going in, and they're all in on that guy. And it's to their credit to this point, it's worked out. But I think that's something that stands out to me is how decisive early on they've been and who they want to recruit at the quarterback position.
Especially that, sorry to jump in there, Brent, but Austin, you look at Nico's class. I mean, that quarterback class was incredible, but I mean, it felt like from the onset they said, okay, Nico's our guy. Let's go get Nico.
They did. They went and got Nico, Merklinger. They had Jaden Davis over for a couple of visits, and then I think that they knew that, because of Nico, he wasn't going to be a realistic option, and they quickly pivoted to Merklinger. After that, George was their number one guy. They had the kid that's going to Notre Dame, who Auburn's trying to flip as the number 2 option, but George was always number 1, and they were able to get him in the boat. And now, Faison, same thing, was always their number 1 option. And so you're right, being decisive, not having to, recruit too many at one time. And, I think all that attention you paid to Faison, paid to George, Merklinger, Nico, it's been evident to the kids and the kids' families. That's a big reason why they've been able to get all 4.
Yeah, let me say this too. I mean, Josh Heupel's going to get a lot of credit because it's his offense and it's quarterback friendly and all that. Give Joey Halzle a lot of credit here for the relationship building he made. I mean, West Coast with Nico, Nashville with George, Jake Merklinger, obviously, and then connecting really quickly with Faison. I mean, he deserves some credit for what he's done in the relationship building with the quarterback position. It's not just been Josh Heupel. I think Joey Halzle has recruited better than I expected him to recruit as a quarterbacks coach, recruiting quarterbacks since his arrival at Tennessee. He's done a really good job with the relationships with those high school kids for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, AP, you can probably have better stories, definitely have better stories about this than me, but I know from just, having my limited interactions with Nico and George as recruits, both of those guys talked a lot about Halzle as, nuts and bolts, drills, footwork, arm position. I mean, I think he's really good at that kind of stuff without making it, like a textbook. I think he really relates well to kids that, that are into it and, breaking the mechanics and stuff down, but not making it all dry and academic. I think there's a certain style of kid that really appeals to.
Well, I think it helps Joey still in his, late 30s, right? I mean, he's able to, not too old. He can connect with kids and, obviously we see him with the hat on backwards there, but I mean, I think he knows how to talk the lingo. And so you're right. I mean, when he's talking about, drills, he's able to put it in modern terms and do so talking the lingo that kids understand. And that goes such a long way, right? The kids will talk a lingo to me sometimes, and I'm like, what's that even mean? And then they explain it to me, like, okay, I got it, like, bet. I get it. Hey, it's all part of the plot.
Here's a question, Brent, AP, Rob, whoever wants to answer it. I understand this is the era of the transfer portal, and you can go and enter the transfer portal and have a new beginning and all that. I get all that. But, I mean, you got Nico that's here right now, right? If everything goes according to plan, Nico's going to be great. He'll be the starter here for 2 years. He'll go to the NFL. Jake Merklinger's behind him, and he's already on campus. George McIntyre's coming in, and then Faison's coming in. I mean, it feels like these guys are not shying away from competition. They know what's in front of them, yet they're still picking Tennessee. I get the transfer portal is a backup option, but they're still committing and signing and want to be a part of this program. Why is that, Brent?
Well, I think because of the transfer portal, you can follow your heart. and you can follow where you want to go. And so I think quarterbacks in particular, because there's only one ball, you go see if you can win the job at your dream school and go be the guy at your dream school. And if you can't, you're not stuck, right? I mean, you go back to 1996 and the day Peyton Manning announced he was coming back for the 97 season. And I mean, here's Jermaine Copeland, here's T. Martin, and I got to sit. Because if you left then, you were going to set out Peyton's senior year anyway. So what was the point in leaving? You just knew you had to wait another year that you didn't think you were going to have to wait. Now that's not the case, right? I mean, you come in, compete for the job, and go win the job. If you don't win the job and you're not happy, you can leave. And I think that's why we're seeing less decommitments around the country at all positions. But I also think it means that guys can go where they really feel like they want to go and where their heart says. And if it doesn't work, then you got the freedom to move wherever you want to move.
AP, you and Hubs have been around, Faison for several times coming to Tennessee's campus. I know it's early. I know he's just entering his junior season. I know he's young for his age, but he is the first commit for the 26th class for Tennessee. What do you see in him that could potentially be a leader, a peer recruiter? Could he be that guy for that class that kind of gets the ball rolling?
Well, sure. And I would expect him to be. I mean, he's going to carry a ton of weight. He's the number one quarterback in the country, not just by on-3. 24/7 has him as well. In fact, they have him as the number one overall player in the country. So, a kid that, continues to connect and other kids are going to know who he is. Kendra Harrison's going to know who he is. Smoke Matthews, Brody Keefe, all these kids in the North Carolina area. Obviously, Tennessee picked up a commitment on Monday night from Carson Sneed. So now they have 2 commits in this class. And with Carson, that's your tight end. We'll see if they can go get Kendra Harrison, who's just down the road. The one thing that I don't think he'll be able to do as much as George. George came over here he just came over here a ton. I mean, anytime they needed him to, 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 20 minutes, whatever, from Nashville, boom, he's here. This is a little bit further of a drive to come from Greensboro. So it won't be as frequent, but I still think he'll be over here on the major weekends, helping Tennessee try to land some top players in 26.
You mentioned Carson Sneed. He jumped on the boat on Monday night, 4-star rated tight end. He is a top 200 player. If you look at on-3, if you look at rivals, 6'6", 215 pounds, a guy Tennessee's been on for quite some time, an in-state prospect. AP, what does he bring to the class? What's his skill set, and why did he pick Tennessee right now?
I think he just was ready to have it over with. I think he's known for a long time where he wanted to go, but he wanted to go through the process. He took plenty of visits, gave everybody an opportunity to try to wow him, and nothing was ever going to beat Tennessee. And it gave Hubs that quote like last summer about, surviving the Butch Jones and Derek Dooley eras or whatever as a fan. He clearly grew up wanting to cheer for Tennessee. If you listen to the quote he gave me, ever since he put on pads, he wanted to run through the tee. And so, he can't wait for that day to get here. But it'll have to wait a little bit because he's got 2 years of high school football left to play over there in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, he just couldn't hide it. I mean, he could try, but, I mean, it was one of those deals like when you walked away from interviewing, you're like, okay, he's coming. It's just a matter of when, not if.
That's right.
I think the thing about his game is evolving. And Austin mentioned that he's got 2 years left, and I'm going to be really interesting to see where he continues to go physically. He's gotten so much stronger and so much bigger over the course and weight gain and stuff from last year to this year in the summer camp stuff. And he's not small on the tape that you're watching on YouTube, but I'm curious to see where he continues to go with that frame, because he has put on weight and he's going to continue to put on more weight and muscle. And I think he's got a big upside. I mean, Austin, I thought he was different at this camp compared to last year's camp. Last year's camp felt a little more finesse. This year's camp, you had to go tell him, hey, you're not wearing pads. I mean, he was just he clearly has more confidence in his body because he's gotten stronger and bigger. And I think that'll translate for him very well this fall.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sure part of the people over there want to blame it on the offensive line. That's not going to happen, but he's an extension of the offensive line. He's a big kid. He's only going to get bigger, as you pointed out. And, physically, I mean, he looks the part. I mean, he's every bit of 6'6", 225 pounds. He was standing beside George at the July recruiting event. And, we all know George is tall. And, I mean, he's right there eye to eye with George. And I was just like, he gets bigger and bigger every time you see him. So the thing I love about him is there is an inner belief. You want to call it cockiness, confidence, whatever you want to call it. There's an inner belief that he is the best guy on the field, that he's the best tight end, in the class, that he's the best tight end in the country. He believes that. Now whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm not a talent evaluator, but it goes a long way when you believe you are, and your game is able to help back that up. So, again, I think he will only get better because physically, as you can see right there, as he pancakes the defender, he has that side of it. He catches the ball really well, and again, he's only going to get bigger, I would imagine.
I know he's young already, but did he play tackle in his past earlier in high school?
I think they wanted to play him that a couple of seasons ago, and I think he was like, no. Because he plays at a small school, so he's
already one of the biggest guys on the team, yeah.
Yeah, how many guys are they going to have as big as he is?
Not many.
But not many. He's just continuing to get bigger, and his ball skills get better, and I just think he's still scratching the surface of what he can be.
All right, before we shift gears, what should we look forward to next in the 26 class? You had no commits on Friday. You have 2 here on a Tuesday morning. And then looking ahead, obviously, to 2025, still, you've got David Sanders, August 17th. Onus is going to come out and pick between Tennessee or Florida State on August the 23rd. Are those the 2 to watch right now, or anybody else that Tennessee needs to be on the radar for?
I think with the 26 class, I think you'll see it slow down a little bit. I don't think you'll just keep this pace up. But Tennessee would love to try to get Tyreek King in the boat sooner rather than later. The kid from Catholic, he's fantastic. To me, he's the most dynamic player in the state. He's the best receiver in the state. And, he's going to have a chance with a good high school quarterback in Jaden Neal. Once Neal gets healthy, he's out right now, will have a chance to really blossom. Again, pay no attention to the RPM. That's not right. But, kid's got, a lot of wiggle and speed. And that's something that Kelsey Pope has coveted for well over a year.
So Tennessee football recruiting continues to be on a heater. Faison Brandon, the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2026, number 10 in the On3 industry rankings, commits to the University of Tennessee. Carson Sneed, a 4-star tight end, 6'6", 215 pounds, jumped in the boat last night. And, of course, Tennessee, for the class of 2025, still sitting in a pretty good position with some big-time commitment announcements coming up in the next few weeks. We'll get a look at Tennessee fall camp, some observations we have throughout the first week, and, of course, we'll hit on that big injury when we return. But first, I want to get a word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
Exterior Home Solutions, that phone number for a free estimate. You can dial 865-524-5888. You can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. They are local and trusted. They've been doing it since 1999. That is Exterior Home Solutions. So the big news from over the weekend off the recruiting trail was the injury to Tennessee's star player, nickelback, defensive back, Jordan Thomas. Knee injury. He's going to miss the entirety of the 2024 season. It's unfortunate. Brent, I think that he's got a lot of skill. I think he's a good player, but injuries have kind of held him back. And now, if you're Tennessee, you're trying to find answers there from a guy that was going to be pushed for that job anyway, don't get me wrong, but he was a guy that you had penciled in there like, hey, here's a starter. Now you got to look elsewhere.
Well, I think they considered Jordan Thomas as one of their 5 best.
Yeah.
And if he were not the starter at Star, I think there was a comfort level that he might have got to look at safety, later on in fall camp. And obviously, now that's not going to happen. It's unfortunate for him He has had an issue staying healthy when he's gotten some playing time. He got, at the end of the year, he got banged up. And obviously this was just a freak injury type, on the outdoor practice field and a non-contact thing. And unfortunately we see those things happen, and you wish him the best. To me now, Rob, it all becomes about what do you do with what can Boo Carter do, and how fast can Boo Carter get up to speed before you kick off on August 31st? And how much do you use game one against Chattanooga to ensure that Boo Carter's comfortable enough that you're there with him heading into week 2 when you go to Charlotte and take on NC State? That, to me, that's the focal point of that position right now. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we can overstate it enough. I mean, how crucial that first game is. I mean, I think I agree with you 100%. If Tennessee has 80 defensive snaps in that game, he gets 80 defensive snaps. I mean, if you, in fact, over this next week or so determine that, that's your guy, I mean, and is that not a foregone conclusion? I mean, am I wrong in assuming that? I mean,
I
know there's some other bodies, but I mean, that's what you hope. I mean, that's the guy that looks like your best option.
I think if you're sitting there looking at it, and AP, jump in here if I'm wrong, but I think if you're sitting there looking at it and you're trying to figure out the 5 most talented athletic pieces to put back there, and Eric, you jump in here too, it only makes sense that it's Boo Carter. You get back to the point of this, though, at the star position. They ask that person to do a ton of things mentally, not just physically, but a lot of things. I mean, they're the rim protector. They fix a lot of wrongs. They make a lot of wrongs right, and all those things. It's a pretty mentally taxing position compared to corner, and in some ways compared to safety. So where is Boo Carter from that side of it? And as a coach, where's the line of we'll live with mistakes because of the talent versus there's too many mistakes that the talent cannot overcome those mistakes right now? That's the question I've got that with Boo Carter, from Boo Carter's perspective and from the coaching perspective as well.
I think it comes down to this, AP, and then I'll hand it off to you. I think we can all agree that Boo Carter is going to be a good player here. I think Boo Carter is going to be a starter in the secondary as long as he's healthy for the majority of this season. I know the next couple of weeks are huge for him, but I mean, the GQ's thinking it, everybody listening to this podcast thinking it. Is Boo Carter, a true freshman, going to be lining up snap one? I know it's just UT Chattanooga, and I know what's coming up next week, but is he going to be snap one, your starter, where this secondary staff really enjoys the veteran comfort level they have in some of these other guys that could be behind him? I don't know. I mean, you hope that's the case, but it's one of those, gonna have to see it to believe it, right?
As we sit here on August 6th, I will tell you, yes, he will be the starter when the balls roll out for defense against Chattanooga.
Would make the most sense.
I think that's going to be the direction they want to go. Now, it's up to him to prove he can handle it. Like, I think that's where it all could change. If he proves that he can't handle it, or makes too many mistakes that the coaching staff said, we just can't do this, then I think it could change. But as of right now, I believe the coaching staff has every intention of making him the starting nickelback against Chattanooga. But it's going to be up to him to solidify that with how he plays in 11-on-11 work and scrimmage play from now until Chattanooga.
And, coming, around the line of scrimmage play. Brent was saying they asked them to do an awful lot. Physicality and with tight ends.
He loves that. That's something they used him in a lot at Bradley Central. He loves coming down in the box. So that's something that, he likes contact. So I think that that's where he will flourish the most out of any part of the position. And Boo's an athletic, specimen, for his position. But I think that's where he really feels comfortable down in the box.
No, I agree with you. I think there's a difference, though, in, coming down and helping in run support. And because, you saw that in the spring game. He does that really well, and we saw that in high school. But also taking on a block from a tight end, or maybe even at times a tackle as the end man on the line of scrimmage. I think continuing to grow in that game, obviously, for any young player, not just Boo. Rob, if Boo Carter obviously is who we think will play that position the majority of the time. He's skill set, athlete. It's been anticipation since he's been in this class. If Boo Carter's not in at the star position, some other names we could potentially see. A guy that's had a little bit of versatility at cornerback in 2022, safety in 2021, and was really kind of getting back to safety now, is a guy in Christian Charles. Never reach his full potential to date because injuries, much like Jordan Thomas, has held him back. But I do think Christian Charles could be an option there. And, of course, the veteran walk-on Will Brooks.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just throwing this one out. What is Slaughter? No, I mean, no chance. I mean, I know he's not worked there, but I'm just saying that if there's an injury, I know he's saved. But if things get bleak enough, is he a guy that can run in there?
I think if there's another guy that runs in there, if once he gets healthy and gets back on the field, is where's McMurray? The transfer out of Temple. Yeah. Where does he fit it? Because he's played. Temple didn't use it exactly like this, but I think he's played a little bit of that third corner. And again, I think the other question in this, Austin, and you could comment on McMurray as well, is Josh Heupel always talks about this on offense, right? Like we can play with any type of quarterback. If he's mobile, great. If he's not, we can tweak this, we can do that. I mean, we can play with tall guys, we can play with short guys, fast guys, slow guys, whatever. The question on the back end is how much flexibility can they have? Can they make that star position basically a third corner, or is it going to be a third safety? I would argue that for since Tim Banks has been here, it's been a third safety because Tamarion McDonald, no offense to him, is not playing corner. Okay. Now, when Willie was here the first time and Justin Coleman was playing there, Coleman was more of a corner than he was a safety playing the star position. So I think the other question when you're talking about personnel with that is how do you want to play the star position? Do you want to play him as as basically an extra safety, or do you play him as an extra corner? I think that can go a long ways in dictating who your potential personnel is. One, how you play with Boo Carter, but then behind Boo Carter, what does that personnel and what do those options look like?
And kind of on that note real quick, the quote, I put this in the injury impact from yesterday. This is from Tim Banks last week. Quote, different places I've been, sometimes it's been more cornerish. Some places it's been more of a hybrid. I think here we've had the luxury of doing a little bit of both. The only time they've done a little bit of both was with Brandon Turnage in 2021 for one game because he was a corner body. But that position's extremely important. We asked them to do a lot of things from coverage perspective, but they also have to be great blitzers. They need to be able to come off block. So that was Tim Banks last week, AP. Doesn't really say anything, but essentially about what body type is he looking for. Because I agree with Hubs. It's been a safety body type, under this regime.
Justin Coleman. Pharaoh Cooper just scored again. But hey, he's still in the NFL. And
he was. I don't know if he still is. He's had a nice career in the NFL.
Career for a guy that Pharaoh Cooper was becoming, a duster of. I think that to answer your question, if they go with Boo, it's kind of the combination, right? Because Boo could play some corner if they really needed him to. I think he's athletic enough, but it likes the physicality of like a safety. Like to me, he's the combo of the two kind of paths you talk about. I don't know what Tim Banks will do. I think that's a great question, and I think that's why they've got the next 3 weeks to figure it out. Again, I will reiterate. I think that the intention is for it to be Boo unless he proves he can't do it, and then who knows?
Man, I absolutely hate it for Jordan Thomas because he's a great kid to talk to. Really was hoping he could do something this year. But my point being, if you're going to have something like that happen, it's a silver line that it happened, first 5 days of camp, especially when you're talking about a true freshman. To put even more a finer point on it.
Yeah, he's got it. The interesting thing is, I'm with you, Rob. You said earlier, if you're playing 80 snaps, he needs all 80 snaps, and he does. At the same time, too, you also got to find out who your number 2 guy is.
Well, that's true.
Because you don't have – I guess Will Brooks is your security blanket if you needed to go out there. But I don't know that that's the direction you want to go. So if healthy, you've also got to see what McMurray can do. Because we've talked about it all summer. What was this puzzle going to look like, right? You had all these pieces to work with, and what was that puzzle going to look like? You thought you had a pretty good feel for that puzzle as you rolled into fall camp, and now you just lost a piece, right? You got to figure out how to rearrange the puzzle at this point in time to figure out who your best 5 are. Can you play dime? There's a lot of things to uncover and kind of unpack here over the course of the next few weeks. if I'm with AP. In the best case world, it's boo and you roll on. Okay, that's the best case scenario. That's what everybody's looking for. But what are your plans if it's not boo? What is your plans if something were to where boo couldn't go for some reason? Is it Will Brooks to star and Jacoby Thomas to safety? Is it McMurray at star? Is it where's Christian Charles and all this? Can he stay healthy enough? That's why you have fall camp. Those are things they're trying to figure out, really starting this week and going through that Friday night scrimmage.
And another question I have too, I don't think we've seen this a lot on defense with this staff through the first 3 seasons. But like, say Jalen McMurray, for example, he's your number 3 corner, and you're trying to create some depth there at corner beyond those 3 and figure out what you got. Could he back up Boo Carter at star? So could he theoretically in the same game? There's no reason he can't, but everybody likes to keep a simple one-track mind. Everybody loves the idea of cross-training, but in a game it's a one-track mind. Could Jalen McMurray go in and play corner and then go in and play star in the same game? Could Will Brooks do the same thing? Could Christian Charles do the same thing? I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting because I think at the end of the day, it's about who's your best 5 out there, not specifically, well, let's only have Christian Charles. I think Christian Charles' value is better at safety than star. That's just my opinion. But, could he go in and play a series at star, but also play a series at safety whenever Jacoby Thomas gets banged up? I don't know. We'll have to see for sure.
Well, for me, no offense to Christian Charles, the X factor back there is McMurray to me, Austin. It's not Christian Charles. And that's no offense to Christian Charles, but McMurray's got so much more experience than Christian Charles has. And he's played a couple of different positions while he was at Temple. So to me, that's the X factor of exactly where does he fit in. Where does he fit in best for you in the secondary? Does star make more sense than corner for him now? Or as Eric said, he's the first guy off the bench, not playing the position safety. He can play either corner or the star spot.
Well, I would also add, to the X factor is Jordan Matthews, because if Jordan Matthews continues to progress in fall camp and the coaches, he earns more trust with the coaches, it makes it even easier to put McMurray over there at the star spot. If, again, and I'm betting on Boo because if you've been around that kid at all, to bet on him. I'm betting on Boo to figure it out, but if Boo can't figure it out.
But, that was the first thing when we were talking about it on Sunday, the 3 of us, when Jalen McMurray's name was mentioned, the first thing that came across my mind is like, well, gosh, man, what about corner? Like who's behind McMurray? So that's a good point. Jordan Matthews continues to progress. He gained more, confidence in him. Then it's easier to do that. Same, I think, with Will Brooks. Is we wrote about it, Hubs. Will Brooks getting a look at star is dependent on John Slaughter and Jacoby Thomas, because if they're coming along at safety and they have confidence and a good feel for what's going on right now, then sure, Will Brooks can get a look behind Boo or whoever at star. So I just think it's the same thing. You're just down a player trying to create some depth and trying to figure out who best fits where.
Well, you're trying to get your best 5 on the field.
Yeah.
Your best 5 playmakers back there need to be on the field. Okay. You're making 1.5, 1.7, whatever the number is, as the defensive coordinator. Okay. And I'm not trying to take a shot at anybody, but your job is to tweak it defensively to make it work for your best 5 guys in the back end. If that means you have to simplify some things compared to what you spent part of the summer drawing up, then you simplify it. Put your guys in the best position to go make plays. Okay, your most athletic guys to go make plays. And if that means you're playing the star spot a little different, then I say you play the star spot a little different. I think you tailor it to the skill set that you have versus trying to force something into the schematics that you want to have. I think good coaches adapt and adjust to the player's skill set rather than trying to force that skill set into their schematics.
So obviously that is something we're paying attention to right now. Going into fall camp, it was the secondary to begin with. Now again, you're down, one guy in Jordan Thomas. We'll see where Boo Carter is over the next couple of weeks, and how those puzzle pieces are fitting back there. Rob Lewis, what's some of the highlights? What's something that stuck out to you over the course of the first week of fall camp? Could be offense, could be defense. What stood out to you?
Man, I don't want to just pump the hyperbole train too much, but just, so much more athletic. And I don't mean necessarily than last year or what. Just really, if you take the big picture and just, look at where this thing started with Heupel, it's just night and day. That's reflected obviously in the rankings and the wins and whatnot. But I start at receiver, and you just look at long guys that can run. Defensive back. So many of those guys are young, but I guess Tim Banks said the other day, I don't know if they can play yet, but we got some guys that can pick them up and put them down. That looks to be the case. There's a lot of quick twitch athletes over there. Just better, bigger, stronger, faster. It just looks so much more like a legit SEC roster. And as far from the stuff that we get to see, especially at this early in camp, that's probably about as bold as I want to go. But man, just looks like a legit SEC football team. And there's freshmen to be excited about. There's upperclassmen to be excited about. Maybe a generational quarterback that looks the part out there. There's things have changed a lot.
I think, and Rob, I think that's what you're saying too. Like, I think their ones have looked fine. It's been when they had to go twos.
That's a good
it's the 2s and 3s that look like they're SEC ready. Offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. Tight end. That position that continues to stand out to me because I think they're just more athletic there than they were a year ago. And
you don't look now, AP. That room looks. Obviously, you're recruiting well, but that room looks good right now. And it looks good for some years to come.
Yeah, and Ablin's done a nice job, and they stumbled upon Miles Kitzelman, who looks like he's going to really help this football team. Ethan Davis continues to progress, and Holden stays as well. So you like where they're at, with that room, and the only rooms I really even worry about are running back, and it's not because they don't have talent. I think they have talent; they just don't have experience. And then, of course, quarterback, where they just are kind of where they are. It's Nico, and then there's obviously a drop off after that.
Yeah, for me, when I look at this team, if you're taking the big picture view, as Rob was talking about earlier, they've just come a million miles defensively from a talent standpoint. There are some guys who are young players on this team that would have gotten, a starting job when they handed out a uniform in year one, had they been here.
Yeah.
And those guys have spent time developing. You look at where Joshua Josephs is right now. You look at where the development of Tyree West and Bryson Eason, and now all of a sudden Omari Thomas is not going to he's not playing 40 or 50 snaps a game. He's playing 25, and then you're looking at him at linebacker. They haven't played with anybody that looks like Arion Carter since they've been here. And so to me, when you talk about look test, which is what the first week of camp is before you get to a scrimmage and you start getting some feedback on how things go when you're really playing full padded 11-on-11 football, to me, the eyeball test for them on defense, when you think back to where they were those first year, even the first 2 years, man, they look a lot different. They just look dramatically different top to bottom defensively from an athletic standpoint, a physicality standpoint, all those things. And maybe I take that view because offensively, I don't worry about their success offensively because schematically that thing has worked everywhere they've ever been, including the SEC before they got to Tennessee. So maybe I assume too much offensively, but you walk down there and look at them on defense, and they just look a lot different than they did 3 years ago.
AP, let's talk offensive line. You come back in, you return 4 starters who started the season opener last year. So you knew it, and that was a lot of the talk on a Monday. You have a veteran group. You have a group that's got 5th and 6th and 1 7th-year guy. Obviously, a lot of the question marks about left guard. Where are you at on the offensive line? What have you seen from Lance Hurd? He's been a little limited to begin fall camp. What do you like about that group? Yeah,
Lance had a knee cleanup in July, and he's basically about ready to go. But Tennessee's not going to rush him back. I think if they can get him from 11-on-11 work in practice and maybe 1 scrimmage, I think they'd be pretty happy. They don't want to risk anything for the season, but I think he'll be good. And John Campbell's an older guy who I think is he's the fall camp maintenance guy. And understands his body. stay healthy for the season. Coop Mays, similar. Maybe you see him just a little bit more. Spraggins, easing him back in. And then I think Andre Carrig is the one you have to kind of monitor here just because he's coming in off injury. I think that's where, some of the older offensive linemen would like Tennessee to go as far as, who they start at left guard. But we'll see what happens. You got to be out there to practice before you earn a starting job. And, he's kind of been limited the last couple of practices. So we'll see kind of where it all goes. But Tennessee does have plenty of bodies and plenty of, I think, depth compared to a year ago.
Rob, are you buying this idea that Glenn Ellerbe is going to rotate guys on the offensive line?
And rotation, I think, is probably going to be a strong word for me. I mean, I can see them playing, especially early at left guard, just, because, there's some older dudes that have a lot of separation. I could see them, giving those guys all a little run. But I don't see I'll be surprised if they actually have a true rotation. Now, I think they'll, maybe play a utility guy here and there during a game, but I don't. Do you think it's going to be? Every third series, you go in Jackson Lampley. I don't think it's going to be like that.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this at the complex yesterday, and like, there's a difference in when you're up a couple of scores in the second half. Like, yeah, I get Cooper Mays a breather. Yeah, I get John Campbell out of there, but like what we saw at left guard last year against Virginia, like, I could maybe see that, and tell me if I'm wrong, Brent, I can maybe see that as the quote-unquote rotation, this football season. It's like, okay, Andre Carey gets the start, Jackson Lampley gets Series 3, or, whoever. Because, like, in a tight ball game, SEC contest, you're not taking Cooper Mays, John Campbell, Lance Hurd, Jamontes Spraggins out of the game. You're just not. But maybe you do that left guard. That's what I could see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've got to see it to believe it. Just like I've got to see them play more safeties than two safeties, because they just haven't done that. I'm with Rob. I think rotation is a strong word, because you're not just. I don't know that they're going to be close enough at those positions where you say, man, I've got a 1A and a 1B at right guard. We know they don't have a 1A and a 1B at center. We know that. That's not even – there is no rotation at center, okay? But do they have a 1A and a 1B at any other spot other than potentially left guard? I'm not sure that they do. And if they don't, then I'm not sure how much you rotate. And I think Ellerbe kind of noted that when he talked about, you can rotate if they're even, but how many of those positions when you look across the board are even, AP? I mean, Lance Hurd is their best left tackle. Who's their second best, and how close is he to Lance Hurd?
Their second best would be John Campbell. I mean, don't you think, like, if
right? Yeah, if there's an injury, they're sliding, right? I agree. But, I mean, is Larry Johnson the third 1B to John Campbell's 1A at right tackle? I don't think so. So how much do you, in a real tight ball game, are you really rotating somebody? Hey, we're designing you to get the third series of the game. When we change running backs, we're going to change guards. I don't know that I don't know that that's what you're going to see. I think that's certainly going to be interesting to watch. Not week one. Okay. You can rotate all you want to week one. I'm talking about when you get into week 2, week 4, and some other places along the way this season.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I think where Ellerbe was coming from and what Heupel's been preaching, is not rotate every third series. It's, hey, when the game is no longer in doubt, whether it's Tennessee up 25 or down 25, get guys out and get guys in. And that's what this staff, I think struggled to do a little bit at times in certain positions.
Yeah.
And offensive line's one of them, safety's another. Where, like, Tennessee last year at Missouri, like why not get a couple of those guys in the football game and get them some run there when the game was over. And so I think that's where Heupel is really preaching the rotational stuff. It's not the every third series thing. I think it's more so when the game's out of hand one way or the other, let's get our guys in there and quit playing Jalen McCullough 792 out of a possible 794.
Well, I will say this. Then I don't know that you have to preach that. I think if you're the head coach on Saturday, that's what you're doing. If you look out there and the guy's out there, then you just go and tell the position coach, swap him out.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call that. I wouldn't get into a rotate. I mean, rotational is playing 13 defensive linemen in a college football game.
Sure.
But if you're talking about just to get in mop-up duty, I mean, how many times did you sit there and go, well, they're going to get Joe an extra series here, and they're going to get, they got to get somebody to 100 yards receiving. Like, all right, you don't have to preach that. That's just a no-brainer. Take them out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's had to learn that too, because I will never forget running Hendon Hooker up 62-23 in the fourth quarter on the road at Missouri in 2021. I mean, that was about the silliest thing I think I've ever seen in my life.
I would say he's still learning that. I don't know that he's learned that. I would think there's still a learning curve to that.
But like last year, he can say he wasn't worried about redshirt as much as he wanted. And in the end, it shouldn't matter at all. But like Nico should have been playing in that Missouri game last year in that blowout. But is the end of the year, it's like, well, if you're here, might as well not burn it. So
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not bring Joe back out to start the second half in a blowout game with a big bulky brace on his knee?
Yes, they did.
Okay,
100%.
I rest my case.
I was going to ask another question, but overall, anybody jump in here? What do you? There's off day today. 2 practices coming up on Wednesday and Thursday. Scrimmage number 1 on Friday. Rob, what do we need to hear? Like reports back from people who are there. What do we need to hear from Tennessee that they accomplished in scrimmage number 1?
I mean, you want to hear that Nico, made some plays. I mean, I don't think anybody is questioning him or doubting him, but I mean, you want him to, show it. I mean, to go out there and look the part. I mean, with everything that the defensive front has, I wouldn't look for a lot of success running the ball, but you want to, it's what happens at running back? I mean, you don't have a lot there. What do they look like? And more so than ever. Exactly. Great. Pretty much nail on the head. And then everybody was want to know what they looked like just in, pecking order with the injury and the ascension of Boo Carter.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's running back. I mean, and that's that's not the only thing, but for me, that's the biggest thing is Peyton Lewis, Deshaun Bishop, because Dylan Sampson's not going to get a ton of work. What do those guys look like? Where do you feel like you are with some depth there and starting to build that depth at the running back position? So offensively, for me, it's all about running back, and then defensively. What do you look like in the back end when the coach is not standing back there in the middle of the play, lining people up, telling people what to do? I mean, when you're truly playing football and you're playing fast and you're going, I mean, what does that look like? So I would say the interior of the secondary safeties and star and then running back for me are the 2 biggest storylines I'm looking to hear from Friday night, Austin.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys just said. I'll be interested to see what they talk about with the in-helmet communication, coming out of Friday night scrimmage. Like, how do they feel like that went? And, does Hubbs get stepped on? I mean, he's going to be like that gopher in Caddyshack popping up in parts of the Shields-Buckensfield turf trying to get the notes,
If we can only sneak in, right? I've only been thrown out of the stadium twice this summer, so can I get not thrown out by the football staff? Construction people have only asked me to leave a couple of times this summer.
Got to get those pictures for the war room.
You didn't have your hard hat on, Hubbs.
I did not have a hard hat on.
If you wear a hard hat.
I think if he hadn't been carrying the sleeping bag, AP, I think that raised some red flags.
All right, plenty going on right now. Tennessee fall camp, got Tennessee recruiting, getting a great jump start on the class of 2026. Faison Brandon, number 1 quarterback in the class, number 10 player according to the On3 industry rankings. Carson Sneed jumping in the boat, of course. David Sanders still out there, and a couple other prospects for 2025. Fall camp's happening right now. No better time to join us on the website than right now. Brent Hobbs, General's Quarters. There's constant conversation going on, duplicate threads going on over there, but it's all for excitement of this Tennessee football season happening right now, and no better insider notes than right here at Volquest.com.
Yep, bring them to you every day. Going to continue to bring them from recruiting to basketball, football, all things going on right now. Obviously, for football and recruiting is taking center stage, and we're going to do everything we can to cover all of it for you at Volquest. So you want to be locked in. We got practice on weekend practices, scrimmages, nighttime scrimmages, morning practices, all kinds of stuff. We're going to do our best to bring you the very latest on everything. And I think we set a pretty good industry standard over the last several years on covering this program, and I think that's only going to continue.
And we'll tell you where to eat in Destin, and Hubs will tell you where he got that sleeping bag Rob's talking about. Ben Weaver's department store. Great deal.
Well, don't give away the lead.
You,
in the
Grant
email this
Ramey.
week.
That's right.
For Austin Price, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Exterior Home Solutions Volquest podcast. Have a good Tuesday, everybody.